my favorite racing game of all time. Nothing has captured the fun of derby destruction since this masterpiece emerged. What about Wreckfest? Have it, nowhere near as good. Shove it in the garbage. I'm talking about a masterpiece here, and if you've got the time, then I can show you the absolute joy of playing this game, even with the corruption. It's time to corrupt one of my childhood favorite games, Test Drive Eve of Destruction. Sorry about the messed up shadows, it's part of the emulation. I tried numerous ways to fix it, but the one thing I got to work caused more problems, so we'll just have to live with it. You'll get used to it. Unfortunately, this is one of those early 2000s games that's loaded with copyrighted music, so we'll just have to turn that down, is what I would say if I had thought about it before being struck later. That's a lot of brown for those chickens to just be pecking away over there. I guess there could be a bunch of little grubby worms for them. We're not here for chickens, even though my parents have a white leghorn that makes me think of this. That's mainly because the white leghorn is the chicken. It's usually used in games and cartoons, so when a certain demographic and age group thinks of chickens, they're usually going to think of white leghorns. The game, not the precious chickens. After choosing your name, I went with Cletus instead of my usual Widowmaker, because that's been ruined now. We've dropped into this overworld with a number of places to go. This includes the diner, which you can race at for money, the scrapyard, where you can buy new cars, the mechanic, where you can upgrade and customize your cars, and the Eves, which is what the game is about. You start out with $75 and a trash vehicle, but that's okay, since in story you just decided to start doing derbies and are using your mom's old car. Your goal? To be ranked first. Your starting rank? 100th. Let me go ahead and apologize to people who play racing games in third person. I'm not that kind of person. I want a first person view. However, I will use third person every now and again to show the car and so you, the audience, can better see what is happening around me. I still prefer first person in racing, always have, and that will be how the majority of the footage looks. Since we're just starting and it's been maybe 2 years since the last time I played this beauty, I test the controls and get a feel for the driving before heading over to the junkyard for a little peek. After looking at cars out of my price range, it's time to start the first derby. You get to choose which derbies you go to. They have different requirements, such as a ranked position within a certain parameter, and have different cash prizes. Another nice little aspect is that since you're derby racers, and now it's in the middle of nowhere, though that's not always the case, you can choose to race an opponent to the eve, giving you the opportunity to increase your reputation while also giving you the chance to sustain damage before the eve. So again, my apologies if this bothers you, but I regularly tap the button to look behind me to check my lead. This will be a common occurrence. Win or lose, the race ends when you reach the lineup of cars for the first race. These races will never be anything too wild, usually just regular races, jump races, or something relatively normal. This also means that you will always be starting at the back. As you can see, we start this eve with a jump race. I effortlessly destroy the competition. It is the first race, after all, before we get to the eve menu. Allow me to explain. The prize money for the eve goes to the person who comes first in the eve. This means that you don't need to come in first in every event to end the eve in first place. If there's a single demolition derby and you don't have a car specifically for that, you can even choose to skip the event, saving you a probable loss and extensive damage to a car meant for racing. Remember that $75? We're going to need that, as your car carries damage until it is repaired. Repairs at the track are more expensive than repairs done at the mechanic. I said mechanic, but you actually just do them yourself at home. The mechanic is only for upgrades and painting. I hope the chickens help. Also, every time you take damage, a percentage of the damage will not be repairable, meaning that allowing a vehicle to repeatedly take beatings will result in an unfixable scrap pile that must be sold. Not only that, but if you were to take too much damage over the course of an eve and need to constantly repair your vehicle, you could wind up spending more money than you will receive from winning the eve. Now, we only have a single car right now, but you can bring multiple cars to an eve, usually having one for races, one for demolition derbies, and one for special events or races that can result in damage. So just from this one screen, we're introduced to event management, car management, damage management, and money management. Man, I love this game. Look at this. Second race and we're already at my favorite type of race. You may be wondering, what is a suicide race? Allow me to show you. That's right. A suicide race is where half of the contestants race one direction while the other half race in the opposite direction. It is my favorite, followed closely by the figure 8 jump race. We'll get to that. Let's talk about the corruption real quick though. We've just started and already we have textures freaking out and expanding, as well as textures moving to locations they don't belong. Don't you worry. As you can see, this game delivers on corruptions. I seem to have lost my speedometer. That's okay, I can still see the important numbers. I secure another victory and it's on to the figure 8 jump race. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a figure 8 race with 2 jumps at the center, and it is glorious.
You're
Even the pylons don't want to miss out on this. I finished the race and the eve in first place, taking the prize money. But wait, what's this? That's right. You're awarded more additional dollars for doing good collisions. After all, people will be sure to come back and spend more money when the action is more wild. So now you're encouraged to get good hits on opponents for extra cash, while not wanting to take too much damage yourself to avoid losing money overall. I love this game. So I've tried to open the pause menu a few times, and this is because I'd forgotten about the music until I started the game. But the option for it is only accessible in the main menu and not in any of the menus in the game. That sucks, and is bad, but not uncommon for the time period. I'm not putting the whole recording on pause just for that though, so I continue on. I burn that new cash the second I get it and purchase the Ocelot as my new racing beat. Another thing that's important that you might not think about until it happens, which is definitely not what happened to me, is that whatever car you're driving when you decide to go to an eve is the car you drive to the eve. You might say, well duh, but you're forgetting that these early eves take place right next to the salvage yard, and when you buy a new vehicle it automatically puts you into it. So if you just bought your first demolition derby car meant for damage and not speed, you could be ready to hit an eve and be stuck in your derby car for the challenge race and the eve's first event. Now everything I just said isn't true. That's right. They knew this, and a menu will come up when you have more than one car asking you which one you want to drive to the eve. That's right. I made a fake complaint, but I'm sure someone made the real complaint and that's why this was implemented. Or they just weren't complete idiots. I do have a small complaint about these pre-eve races, and that is that unless you've played the game before or looked it up, you won't know how far you are from the eve or how steep some hills may be, or how tight some turns may be, but the opponent does. It's not that big of a deal seeing as how these races are completely optional and you lose nothing from not participating, although you do lose reputation if you lose the race after accepting the challenge. I just needed to make a point that the game is obviously not perfect, but also far better than anything that's come after. Wait, Stinsky? We start with a figure 8 jump race this time, which had a couple good hits in it, including this car that got launched. Next is a jump race, and I should probably do a quick explanation of what it is. It's a race that has a big jump in it. Unlike a normal race, the track isn't a simple oval. It's usually a course with several twists and turns, and the jump itself is usually over part of the track. It's a nice change of pace from all of the races that take place in a simple pattern, which most of the special events do. The push-off is pretty self-explanatory, as are all of the events. It's essentially a demolition derby with the addition of being able to push people off the platform to eliminate them. This may be my least favorite event, and that is purely because it is the cause of most of my restarts and failures. Now if you've been paying attention, you may very well have noticed that I'm using my new Ocelot in this event, and that would be stupid. You are correct. You see all the stuff about when to repair and split your cars for different styles? I forgot it and didn't realize it until I saw the tip that tells you repairing at eves is more expensive in the video I uploaded. So all those things I told you, I actually didn't follow in the early game, which was a mistake that caused me money issues. So at certain ranks, you'll get these videos about actual derbies. It's really nice, even though the emulator adds this bar over here because I'm running a game made for standard definition in 4K. It really sucks that derbies were most popular during an age where none of it would be recorded. There's probably tons of footage on VHS tapes and early DVDs just hanging out in some boomer's storage lot. There are a few that are still around, but it's a labor of love. Shout out to Oval Banger Videos. It's a shame when the most interesting derbies are in the UK of all places. I'd love to be wrong about this. If anyone knows any good derbies out there, drop them below. With the fresh earnings I just received, I purchased a Coyote for the derby portions of the eves. This next eve starts with a shortcut race. Basically there's a part of the normal track that's extended and takes longer, and you have to take that if you're in the first half of position. So what you normally want to do is make sure that on the last lap you're one position under half so you can take the shortcut. Depending on the track in your car, you may want to remain in first if the extended part of the track is not that long or you're able to keep a decent lead. Unfortunately for you though, these races have an even number of laps and you start at the back, so it's extremely likely that you will end up taking the long path on the final lap if you just race normally. I take the L on this one and move on. A regular figure 8. It's a racetrack in the shape of an 8. These figure 8s are usually only really interesting for the last few laps when there's a gap between those in the lead and those at the end that causes them to pass through the intersection at the same time. This is when you'll see most of the carnage, unlike real ones where they all chicken out by treating it like a stop sign. This one only had 8 cars, so it was uneventful. Skip. A whip around race requires you to do a 180-degree flip when you cross the finish line. You go one way, then flip and go the other. Simple and beautiful. There's two ways to do this race. The normal way, where you hit the E-brake and spin. I was going to do this joke where I just left this here and didn't continue it until the next race where I did the other thing, but there's a Red Rover race later where I do the other thing, so I'm going to scrap it. And the other way, where you just stop and drive the other part in reverse. I win the race, bringing us to a regular demolition derby. Last car standing wins. That's not true actually, it's score-based. You earn points by eliminating other cars and get a single point for being the last car. So you can't just evade everyone until one is left or you'll lose, as you should. I rack up 5 kills in my first derby.
Nice.
By this point, I've been allowing my Ocelot to take a beating and haven't done much repairing, and there's a good reason for that. No, there isn't. I was just poor and didn't want to spend money. The next Eve is nothing special, if you ignore the road closing you in and these 2D car sprites that are supposed to be in the parking lot or somewhere. This guy gets flipped in the figure 8. This guy almost takes the win from me. Almost. Red Rover. In this event, everyone starts on one side of a field in a box section. They must all attempt to make it to the other box section without leaving it before the time runs out. The last person is eliminated every wave. Leaving the box before the next round and not making it in time will also eliminate you. So it can be more than just a single car being eliminated each round. Sometimes these boxes will have walls with only one exit, sometimes walls at the top and bottom, or in this case, nothing. This will force you to fight off opponents who will try to push you out of the box while waiting for the others to make it in. Similar to the whip around race, you can either whip around each time or drive in reverse for one of the boxes. Driving in reverse is slower, so it's not recommended for the last few rounds. I screw up by doing this and lose. Ooh, can't have that in here now. History isn't welcome in modern times. This video is about chain races, where two drivers have their cars chained together. Now, while I understand it not being an option, I really wish you had the ability to be the car chained behind and not always the car in front. Missed opportunity. We've reached rank 80 in 3 Eves. Don't expect that pace to stay the same, as the Eves are only going to be stuffed with more and more events and have more laps and more drivers. I take a quick look at the available upgrades and add the no signal color bars to the hood of the Coyote. By that, of course, I actually mean that I make a crappy version of it because I couldn't remember where the image file was on my computer for reference and didn't want to pause the recording to look for it. I also just pepper it with red dots. I'm an idiot. From here on out, at least for the most part, I'll do the painting while not recording. It would appear as though these reputation points unlock things for the action mode. Point-to-point race. Exactly as it sounds. The race takes place over most of the Eves venue, with participants driving from one point to another. I don't like these, again mostly because I'm bad at them. Also, you start in a single file line. Come on. I do kill someone though. This big arrow tells you where to go, and if you pay attention then you'll see that there are arrows painted on the ground to tell you the direction of the next point. Or you could just look at the black and yellow arrow signs set up around it. This will give you a moment to turn in the correct direction in preparation for the next point. I somehow win this one and show off my Ocelot's new hood. Much better, I know. The figure 8 jump race starts rough. I even get a good hit in, but it obviously ends with me winning. I start the push off with a double kill since some guy decided to commit suicide on me. I rack up 7 kills on this one. The Coyote's hood still sucks. I didn't bring it up before, but they may have used actual names of derby drivers from the Orlando Speedway in this game. I don't know for sure as this game has nothing on its Wikipedia page or the test drive wiki. I roll some guy in the jump race before securing my victory. Wrangling. This is a time trial for how fast you can defeat the Moth, the weakest car in the game. 8 seconds.
That ain't bad.
Sometimes they fake you out and run up that timer. A quick Red Rover, where I don't make the mistake of driving in reverse this time, before the Gauntlet. In the Gauntlet, you attempt to make 5 laps in a hearse. I say attempt because every other driver is trying to put your car out of commission. I like this event a lot. My only problem is that I prefer to drive in first person, and they put a coffin in the back so I can't see behind me. Adds to the challenge, though. Most of the AI here will take this dumb sideways barricade position, which you can plow through easily this early on because all the cars are weak, unless they stack up. The ones you really want to watch out for are these guys that come straight at you. They're the ones who will slow you down or stop you entirely. Now, I didn't complain about these two like I did the chain race, which we haven't seen in the game yet, for a good reason. And that reason is that if you're in action mode playing with a friend, then you get to be the Moth or be one of the drivers stopping the hearse. You can play the other roles, provided you have someone to play with. However, this does not change your role in the chain race, as you'll both still be in the first car. Next video is about boat races, which aren't in this game. That's okay though, because they are functionally the same as trailer races, which are in the game. I return to Sweeney's, but I'm out of luck as he loves to stock the top option just above my spending limit. I could get it by trading in my Ocelot, but this would leave me with no cash. I would also still only have 2 cars, even though I want a third for special events that can take a little beating. No, officer, you don't understand. It was just a little beating. I decided to go to the diner and try winning some cash from these races. A lot of these are low bets that aren't worth the time. All of the gambling races are on this track, so you better get familiar with and good at it. It's a decently long track, but only 1 lap, so you only get 1 shot. Unfortunately, this is a race where I need to beat Max Powers and his 2 friends. It's a 3v1 race, which seems unfair, but I need the money. I beat him no problem, so I decide to take on the next guy in a one-on-one. I crush him too. You can only do each of these races once, so I go down the list to get some cash, easily defeating all of these challengers for as little as $25. A different time when you could race someone for $25 and not be worried about how much it'll cost to fill your tank. Now I've got the money to buy the car. That's been replaced with a derby car. I move on to the next betting place with the quarry map. These races are not the same as the last place. These use the 1 map, but it can be going either way and may be different kinds of races. I win the first, lose the second, because it was more than 1 lap. A suicide race? In the quarry? I'm in. I narrowly avoid death multiple times before securing the win. Back to Sweeney's for a quick look. Sweeney, you're the kind of guy that would stab a man in the back for 30 pieces of silver. I get the digit for my next racing car. I race Glenn to the next Eve. He puts up a good fight, but I'm too racist for Norberg and defeat him. I show off what I was talking about earlier in the shortcut race. On the final lap, I slow down to ensure that I get to take the shortcut. I do a really bad job in this point-to-point race and win anyway. Flagpole race. I'm very bad at this one and I'm not usually happy to see it while in campaign. It's a normal race, but there are 2 flagpoles that you have to do a loop around before continuing on the track. It definitely doesn't help that this happens. I was doing alright and then it crashed. I forgot to turn off flux while recording this session, so everything is going to be very yellow. It's exponentially worse if you're using flux yourself. For those that don't know, Flux is a program that makes your screen yellow to reduce eye strain and migraines caused by blue light. I highly recommend it and usually have mine set pretty high. This does mean that I don't see the colors correctly and regularly forget I have Flux on since I've been using it for years. I like how the game has to spawn me to the start. This time I sat too far back and came in 3rd on the shortcut race. New paint job. I was doing fine on the flagpole race until I slammed into this guy in 1st. I flip in the jump race and place 2nd. I rack up 6 kills in the push-off event and finish 1st in the Eve. I absolutely hate the entrance to the next Eve. Look at this winding mess. This figure 8 race has been pretty mild, until the last lap, of course. You can tank as much damage and kill as many opponents as you want in the gauntlet, since you'll earn money from the hits and not have to pay for repairs. I killed 4 cars in this gauntlet and finished the race. This Red Rover has obstacles in the way. I like it. A lot of the cars died from colliding with the obstacles though. To be fair, I almost did as well. Nothing of note happened in the figure 8 jump race. I only killed 3 in the demolition derby and my car got wrecked at the end, but apparently the other guys did too because I still finished 1st despite there being a tie. Either that or the other leader was already dead and ties count as 1st instead of 2nd. Derby basics. Shouldn't that have been the first video? I definitely think these videos could have been ordered better. Not only does Sweeney keep cars above your price range, but the cars that were expensive are now cheaper because you have access to new ones. Remember when I said that the car you go in is what you're in at the moment? Well, it's true. Just only of these betting races, not the Eves. I lost the race to 1 guy out of 5. I don't like the entrance to this Eve either. Really? Just because of this last turn? Zabinski? Thanks for helping me take the lead, guy. How dare you help him take the lead, hay bale? I take a hit in the last lap that pushes me to 3rd, but it looks like whoever was in 1st got hit too, because I get back to 1st almost immediately. The suicide race is very appropriately named this time, as the game seems to be ready to die from corruption. I think I'll just let this race play. Be back in a minute. I hope you enjoyed that event, because I'm gonna have to do it again. I'm joking, of course. The whole emulator crashed, so there is no save state. I have to do the whole Eve over again. There's this corruption that will happen here, where when you hit the jump, it flips you around wildly. This one comes back, and it's always mean to deal with. I don't do so well this time with that jump around. Everyone piled up the start of the jump race. Then this happened. The sound goes crazy, and trying to drive forward spins you in circles. It seems to have affected most of the other drivers too, including this guy that goes flying off the ramp. I restart the race, as if that would fix it, and get this delightful sight. I try to make it work somehow, but the corruptor is not happy about that. That means I have to start the Eve yet again. Luckily it's not as annoying since I love this game so much. I lose the pre-Eve race this time because of this stupid sharp turn. I finished second in the figure 8 this time because of brutality. Some of the cardboard cutout people paid a lot for these fantastic seats. The suicide race started rough, but finished smooth. I finally make it to the derby and score 5 kills. I like how there's a driver in all of your cars when you're at home. I guess you couldn't drive all your cars to the event on your own, right? I trade in the Coyote for the Cannonball and head to the next Eve. Think. The nighttime cityscape is a nice little change of pace. In a stop-and-go race, you have to stop in this box for a few seconds every lap. I come in third. Last man race. Each lap, the person in last place is eliminated. There's no way I can beat this one. The guy in first is so far ahead. These are long races due to having a lap for every car racing. The audio doing this doesn't help either. The knockout is the same as the push-off, except there's a ring around the edge instead of a drop. That weird thing that messes up the terrain is back again, causing flipping and crashing. Not just crashing, but completely destroying the ISO file too. I replaced the busted ISO and we're back to the Eve. I do even worse in the stop-and-go race this time, placing 5th. I also do worse in the last man race, 5th again. I get 6 kills in the derby and manage to place first. Oh, and new paint job. Quick video and we get the news that I'm now ranked 50th. I celebrate by losing $850 in a race. I then do what any respectable person would and quit the game to reload to the point before I lost that money. I then lose and restart the first event of the next Eve. The figure 8 has that flip thing again, though not as bad this time. I take a hit on the last lap and drive through the ramp, still managing to keep first place. Nothing of note happens during the other events, especially not the Red Rover, nor in the Derby. I finish first in the Eve and take that sweet cash. I like the background of the next Eve because it has fair rides. Look at the Ferris wheel. Just imagine the fun you could have with it. I take a few decent hits and mostly lose throughout this Eve. They even mock me on the last event, the Derby. Look at them flashing me, taunting me. I restart the Derby since I was going to lose and have only come in first in one event. I do much better this time with 6 kills and finish first in the Eve. We get another video. This one shows us a time when safety regulation in derbies didn't exist. No roll cages, no seats, just pure adrenaline. They probably still had the speed rules and medics waiting around though. I trade in my Digit to buy the Bulldog. I also sell my Ocelot. The Bulldog is too fast for its own good, causing me to slam into walls and spin out. I got knocked out of the track during the whip-around race and still managed to win. Little trivia for you, if you have cheats in the mail truck, this is the Eve location where you can launch yourself out of the map. The game crashes during the Red Rover, forcing me to restart the Eve. I still slam into the wall while racing to the Eve. Something seems off. Just tapping into the wall causes me to flip over. Upon review, I think there may have been a rock. I was only going 40. I restart the race. I hit a wall and restart the race. It's crazy how picky I was being with this. I mean, at least I wasn't this guy getting knocked out of the track by other drivers. Or this guy that hits the wall and stops him. Is he really going to drive into those poles? Yes, they don't have collision because they're not supposed to be inside the track. I managed to finally come in first because these two decide to screw up. Someone here is way too fast. Since I had to reload, I just bought the Bulldog this time and kept the Digit for special events like this point-to-point race. That was definitely the right choice. I restart this one too, but that's because I lose first place by getting stuck on something. I don't know what causes me to flip 180 degrees here, but okay. I can live with second on this one. Me restarting on the last lap is going to become a theme. It's the one thing I hate about racing. You can do well for however many laps, but the last lap is the only one that really matters. One mistake and it's all over. I restart this one a few times until I get a run I'm satisfied with. It's crazy how much time I spend here, considering every second I'm here is another second the Corruptor could cause the game to crash. I get the one I want by driving in reverse for a lap, but I'm not sure it was worth the damage I sustained. This Red Rover was also rough due to the obstructed view and constant wrecks. I somehow managed to win the push-off with 3 kills, securing first place for the eve. I'm ranked 35th now. Oh, I also have an Outlaw instead of a Cannonball. I start the next eve with a restart because I took way too much damage for someone coming in 4th.
How about that little fella?
Oh, that little guy? I wouldn't worry about that little guy.
The restart didn't do much for me, so I do it again. And again. The ramp flip is back and causing most of the problems here. Well, except for this show-off who stuck the landing. I take second after watching many drivers die. I only came in 3rd in the shortcut race because of stuff like this. If you don't come in 1st, then the announcer treats you like you're an annoyance.
Tonight's top 3 finishers are Howard Jones, Jake Harris, and Cletus.
I get stuck on something again. This prompts me to play in 3rd person so I can see what it is that the car keeps getting stuck on. I beat the gauntlet and even got a kill. I score 6 kills in the knockout to finish up this eve. I get a video as a reward. Again, not really in the game, but fun to watch for sure. Boy, I'm glad that patch of road was just transparent and not an actual hole. The opening jump race goes smoothly, as does the push-off. I had 7 kills too. Oh well, I was defeated by my own hubris yet again. I switched to 3rd person and remember why I hate it. The camera automatically flips if you start reversing, which I hate. Must be front-wheel drive since I'm stuck with only one wheel off the platform. I still mess up, but I'm done with the 3rd person for this. I really should have just taken the 7, but I wasn't paying attention to the score at the time. A measly 5. I blow the shortcut race out of the water though. No competition. The jump race starts, and it's going to be miserable. I changed the camera at the perfect time to see this guy land on top of me. You know what? I'll just let the rest of this one play. Suicide race next, huh? I thought that's what we just did. A couple close calls, but I emerge unscathed. I see we're back to prime seating for the crowd. I didn't mention it before, but I like that the arrow's brightness is directly linked to the distance from the objective. I finish 4th. I get my 7 kills back in the derby. That's not a safe way to transport goods. We start the next eve off with a close race. Nelson could have won if he didn't slam on the brakes like a coward. This whip around race was definitely the easiest one I've done. No collision on the first whip allowed me to gain a huge lead and avoid colliding during the other whips. I've done very well so far. This whole eve might go well for me. I beat Nelson to the eve and start the whip around race off fairly nicely. Someone doesn't like that. The figure 8 works this time. It's just a little off. If that ramp was right, I would have taken a hit there and probably lost first place, so I'll take it. I'll let the announcer in this short clip summarize the shortcut race for you.
Cletus has a huge lead. Here we go. The last lap is making or breaking time.
First to 7th on the last lap. Apparently I suffered brain damage from that wreck because I can't hit this turn correctly anymore. I just take 5th instead of trying to recapture the magic. I was brutal in the Red Rover. I just don't think the camera's any good in third person in this game. It's not locked forward, which is a problem when I'm driving and need to see where I'm going. I like the interior view since it lets you see my inputs and adjustments in real time. You see me turning the wheel, hitting the gas, or hitting the brakes. I somehow managed to win the Derby, but by this point all my cars are starting to show their wear. Video! The school bus is my favorite vehicle in this game, but you can't get any of the special vehicles in the campaign as far as I know. That means no mail truck, no school bus, no cop car, no ambulance, no hearse. Well, besides the gauntlet and the school bus race. Back to my suffering cars. It would seem that I need to purchase some replacements. I replace my worn out Outlaw with a new Durand, and give it a quick, simple paint job. I forget how fast this thing is until I hit a long, straight road. Aw, man.
Now that's a lot of damage!
I wasn't even in control for that. The game takes control once that message pops up. That's not fair at all. After a quick and easy shortcut race, I get to test out my new Durand in a demolition derby. It doesn't have great visibility out the back, but I'd say it did well. I kinda just take the L's on these events with nothing special happening here, aside from the parking. The knockout is weird though. So many cars get eliminated, yet the leader only has 1 point. I guess everyone could have been eliminated by a different driver or themselves. 1 point and half the drivers are out already. Down to 3 cars and I'm in the lead with 2. What happened? One of these guys also had 2 since he becomes the leader with 3. I win the event and the eve, somehow. I didn't place last in those L's, second mostly, but it hardly feels like a real win. 10-10-4 split? Ooh, I want that rocket. Too bad I'm poor. I decide to sell my digit since it's becoming more obsolete the longer I have it. I want to buy the rocket and have the Bulldog be my special event car. This map? You can see that I remembered the sharp turn this time and slowed down appropriately. I crushed Zwolinski in this race. I do great in the figure 8 until the last lap, of course. Unacceptable. I know what you're thinking, if you mess up on the final lap so much, why don't you just slow down at the intersection like the real racers? Because that's boring. Plus, if the who destroyed my doesn't have to slow down at the intersection, then why should I? The game crashes during a good derby. I had 5 kills and 4 opponents left. Also, it's unable to load the save state. I think that's because I didn't set one. I head to the diner to retry that $850 race with my Bulldog. Not off to a good start. I restart, which I'm glad you can do in this game, unlike some other ones. I do better, but it's still no cigar. The Corruptor decides that the audio should be annoying. You know what they say. I win the $850 fair and square on my first try, as far as Tiger and his friends know. I trade the Bulldog in for the Rocket and give it a little test drive. I beat Yancey to the eve. The first event is a stop-and-go race. This is my least favorite event. I forget these even exist until I'm forced to do one. I come in 4th and lose half my health. I think this whole eve is going to be garbage. We destroy this poor guy at the start of the jump race, which is short because this eve's location is tiny compared to what we've been in thus far. I managed to steal first from this guy, who I get to ram into a busted car. Cruel. We're halfway through this eve and my poor Rocket is hurting for some repairs. I can't do much for it.
Because I'm all out of money!
Luckily for me, in the forward-backward race, the Rocket's backseat is gone so I can see a little better. My health is really low though. I doubt I'll make it. Truly, I have been blessed. No health, multiple mishaps, yet I still get first place. This does mean that I'll need to exclusively use the Durand for the rest of the eve though. It is not meant to be in a race. It controls horribly, and despite being used for its resiliency, it takes quite a beating that nearly puts it out of commission. This guy dodges an incoming car and right into me, ruining this run. Yeah, I restart this one a few times, and the textures at the start are never a good sign. I'm spending way too much time here. After all, a small map means less variables to corrupt. I definitely would have come in second if it wasn't for the leader obliviously driving into the incoming horde. I didn't take much damage in the winning run either. Wrangling with 2 mods. Ooh. I skipped the flagpole race. There is no way I was going to get anywhere near first and come out of it unscathed. It's just not worth it. That means it's knockout time. Luckily for me, the leader, who only has 2 points, goes down at some point, leaving just me and this loser to fight for the last point. I win. We get a video of car soccer, which is in this game. Rocket League can go die. Rank 10th. It's almost over. I lose to my first time. I lose the ability to steer for a moment on my last run, which convinces me to move on to the Eve. We open with a shortcut race, and I lose my steering for a moment again. I pause to examine my controller inputs as the car is refusing to cooperate with me. I should have known from the first road sign that this Eve was going to be cursed. After swapping controllers and the issue still persisting, I decide to restart the game. I manually drive to the road instead of jumping to it to test out my controls, and everything appears to be functioning correctly for now. I don't think I could beat McBain on my best run.
Oh, stop talking crazy.
A nice thing about the shadow emulation bug is that I can see where other drivers are through the walls, so I can gauge how far along they are on their path. I do wish it was only the cars that had these though. I get rocketed past on the last lap and end the race in 4th place. Figure 8 jump and something is wrong again. Look at these fellas tumble. Then I take a tumble. It appears as though there's a collision for another ramp or object in the air on the right side of this jump, so if I just avoid that, I should be good. I didn't do a good job of avoiding it on the other jump. I just straight up drive into it on the next lap. Spin! You know what? I'll go into 3rd and hit it just so we can see how good it looks. And I stick the landing. The guy that went with me, despite not spinning as aggressively as me, eats dirt. Also, it counted as a hit for me. Let's play it again. Oh, I see now that I actually landed on him, and that's why I got a hit. Tough break, dude. It doesn't go so well on the next go. I hit this huge invisible wall that ruins my flipping. All my playing around nets me 2nd place, but I'd say it was well worth it. Something new. Survival. It's a point-to-point race with 5 points and a large group of cars that want to prevent you from completing it. I managed to complete it with 3.6 seconds left on the clock. Survival is followed by the gauntlet. It's my turn. Awesome indeed. I win the suicide race, albeit with more damage than I would prefer. I do pretty well on taking out the moth this time, apart from a spin out. We close out with a demolition derby. I finished this Eve with a whopping 13 kills, 5 of which were from that derby. I am now ranked 6th, so close to the top yet so far away. I take the L on this race as I had no idea where I was going. Those little road blockades are nice and all, but they don't work too well without lights when I'm going 130 miles per hour to beat some other non-street legal car. The figure 8 jump race plays out normally with some wrecks that help me take the lead, until I get hit midair. Down to 8th, but only on the 3rd lap, so I can still claw my way back up. Then I hit the wall and restart. I have a much smoother ride this time and finish in 1st. I don't even know who I was passing. Some unlucky fellas, I suppose. I win the push-off with no health remaining. I skip the flagpole and point-to-point race as I'm just not feeling it. Not with the rocket. It's taken enough beatings. I say that, but even my Durand is almost not worth having. Only 68% max health. I get third in the Red Rover, which is fine with me. The other two that were left were much faster. Another easy whip-around race victory. The rocket being so fast allows me to keep a good lead on the whip-around, preventing me from getting locked up in a dog pile, though I do usually still have to deal with the first one. Another gauntlet. Alright. I don't go as hard on this one. Plus one of the kills didn't count. The jump race is kind of difficult. A lot of that difficulty comes from the seizure-inducing texture corruption. I managed to get first, despite my mistakes. I do enjoy Demolition Derbies being the final events. They usually are in actual events as well due to the cleanup time. In game, however, it serves as a nice outlet for any anger you may have built up throughout the evening. I restart this one a few times before I get a decent run. I traded my Durand for a Durand and give it a durability boost to 11. I also trade my Rocket in for a Rocket, with Sweeney having to pay me $300 for the trade. I boost its speed and handling to 11. Ranked second, boys. This is the final eve. There's no race to this one, as it's happening right here. Probably should have done more bet races and time trials to really familiarize myself with the location. Oh well, too late now. Try as I might, I cannot get this landing down.
Well, how about this? Lead us for relatively...
I figured it out on the last lap. I never got higher than third anyway, so I'll take it. This suicide race is a little different. Tell me if you can notice anything different. That's right, the track for the quarry is more narrow than the tracks we're used to, meaning that it's more difficult to avoid each other if you're meeting while in the quarry. I managed to bag first place, and that's after I took this hit. School bus race? Yes, yes, yes!
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my god.
I already told you that the school bus is my favorite vehicle, so you know I'm excited to do this. Look at this beautiful mess we make on our first lap. Dead. I think this hole in the texture is real. Both times I went over it, you can see the bus drop. I take first place. Too bad it was only 2 laps, but I get it. Not everyone wants to go 80 miles an hour in a school bus. I get 5 kills in the derby, which brings us to the whip-around race. I restart twice, with my second time being a mostly decent run. Remember what I said about the suicide race? Thanks for the steering wheel upgrade. I can't even see them coming since they're below me. This guy is doing the spin move.
The spin.
I accept that third is probably the best I'm gonna do on this one. Survival? Oh no. Skip. Point to skip. I'll do a gauntlet. I don't have to pay for the repairs on that one. I'm glad the Corruptor is really going to town on this finale. We've got missing textures, stretch textures, misplaced textures, textures that fly around when you pass them, missing fences, floating fences, holes in the world, cars freaking out. Feels good, man. I almost make it, but I take the L with my 4 kills and move on to the final race. The No Rules race. Sounds good, huh? It's just a normal race. It's called No Rules because you can target and try to kill each other, but it's just a normal race, relatively speaking. So that means all of the craziness you've endured for the game culminates in a final race. An actual race, albeit on a unique track. I like it. Fix up that rocket, it's time to go. I really like the path for this race. I finished in 3rd place, but I'm cool with it. I enjoyed my time racing. Oh yeah? What a reward. You definitely don't see this anymore.
It does hurt every now and then to do that.
Actually, the UK guys do car jumps, and some of them are pretty good. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this Schneider. I hope you enjoyed this silly little game as much as I did. What can I say? You've seen how much fun this game is. I enjoy a good story and all, but gameplay is the foundation of your work. Everything else is built on it, and this game's gameplay is top-notch. The best part is that you didn't even see all the game has to offer. I didn't even cover the other modes, events, and unlockables in this game. There's action mode, dares, and cheats. I always enjoyed the cheat that gave you chicken rockets to fire all the time. That and the explosive chicken rain. Chaotic joy. There's a special battle mode that requires another human player where you have free reign over the track and get chicken rockets to shoot at each other. So I know I talked about the chain and trailer races, but you don't actually play those in the campaign mode. There are two others, the car soccer, which there was a video for, and detention, which there was not. Detention is reverse gauntlet. You get a bus and everyone else is trying to finish a figure 8 race. Your objective is to stop them all. I like it. In both chain and trailer races, you can eliminate people by destroying their chain. You can also cause damage to your own chain by driving wildly. There's also this thing that didn't happen in campaign, where if you get a good collision in midair, time stops and the camera circles around you. Here's a little car soccer for you as well. Using the bus is easy mode for things like this, but I love it so much. Man, I really need to end this video. I've never had anyone play the game and not like it. I highly recommend it to everyone, and I'll probably play it again at some point. That's it for this one though. God bless.